I can't think of another game which has simultaneously been so enjoyable and frustrating at the same time. Kingdom Come Deliverance is an excellent RPG in many ways and a terrible game in others. When I first started it, I looked around and was in awe of the gorgeous visuals. I also noticed that the game was capping at 60 frames per second, so I had to see if there is a way for me to unlock this without having to use console commands. Of course, there is no such way, so it was something I had to deal with first. After that was done, I quickly noticed how weird the movement was in the game. The combat felt the same way too, slow and somehow even delayed. The first game that came to mind was DayZ, and that game is stuck in development hell and is so broken that it will probably never be released or fixed properly. I tried to fight and found out that it was not enjoyable at all for me, so I went in a different direction and decided to be a thief/assassin. That was much more fun and would be my preferred way of playing the game for the next 80%, and then 20% I changed my game style just to spice things up a little bit. The game story is not bad. Our protagonist is called Henry and lives in a small town with his father and mother. His father is a blacksmith and is tasked with forging a sword for a local lord. Henry wants to help his father forge the sword, and as they finish the weapon, an invading army reaches their town and massacres it. Henry loses everything but his life and vows to avenge the death of his parents. He also loses the sword he helped his father forge, so his only memento now is gone, and it becomes our second main quest to recover that said sword. Kingdom Come Deliverance is an RPG. You gear up, you level up your abilities as you progress through the story, and just move into the game as you would normally with an RPG. The leveling system is similar to that of Skyrim. The more you do certain things, the more proficient you become at doing them. This means that your character starts as a blank sheet of paper and can advance to become a master of everything if you invest enough time into the game. I found that leveling Henry's abilities felt more natural and fluid than it was in Skyrim. It was rarely a grind, and even when that was the case, it was still either relaxing or fun. The alchemy, for example, is one of the best examples which can be given for grinding, which is kind of entertaining, while leveling it requires you to stay at an alchemical station and brew potion after potion. It is still somehow a lot of fun to do and has things to discover as you go. On the other hand, herbalism was quite relaxing, same as hunting and many of the other skills that you need to develop. The beauty of the story is that it is somewhat realistic and fits well into the world. Unlike other stories, it does not give a sense of urgency. This revenge that you have to take care of can happen at some time, but there is no rush. Henry is a nobody, an orphan in a raw, although gorgeous world. He needs to prove himself first, make allies, learn more about life before he can actually even consider completing the main quests. This is an excellent fundamental layer on which to build an RPG world. It gives a credible excuse for the player to go out and explore the game world, do side quests, and improve his character before actually beginning the story missions. Many RPGs perform very poorly when it comes to this. They give the player an urgent quest which cannot be delayed, yet allow the player the freedom to roam around and explore. This breaks immersion and creates a conflict between what the player wants and what the story demands of him. The term ludonarrative dissonance describes the exact problem I've just mentioned. I understand that it's very hard to craft a good story and interesting world and simultaneously explain why the character can afford to just pick herbs for hours in the forest instead of actually trying to take care of the urgent task that was given to him or her. Kingdom Come Deliverance is more realistic in how it treats its quests. The player will often find that a lot of RPG tools are simply missing here, such as indicators where an objective can be found. The only information you will have is an actual information which was given to you in one way or another through the quest giver themselves. He might just describe a location, you will have to find it based on his description. There is a lot of beauty in this, but sometimes it can feel like the game wants to waste your time. I had no problem with this aspect of the game, but there was something else that bothered me. I will explain this through two examples. In one quest, 3 women want to use a drug in the evening. Henry has to follow them and see what happens. If you should miss them the first evening, you can try again any other evening as many days later as you like. The quest even stresses how acquiring the drug was hard and getting it again seems impossible since the quest giver is the person who made it and regrets it now. Still, you can essentially try as many times as you want, even though theoretically the women will go out into the woods every night, use the drug, so you'd think that they just have no more of it after, let's say, a week or a month of time that you don't go to. In another quest, a man is sick, and the only way to save him is to find a priest who may know what potion could cure that man. Should you fail to do so within a few days of in-game time, the man will actually die and the quest will end. You will have failed it. You won't get another chance. This game is inconsistent, so it's always best to take each quest seriously and complete them without too much of a delay. It was something that annoyed me a lot because this inconsistency is something that you cannot count on anymore. Or rather, you can count on it being inconsistent. While this is something annoying, it's not the biggest problem by far. I spent 10 days playing this game for many hours, and I'm talking about 10 real-time days that I've been playing it almost completely for the whole day. In this time, I have almost leveled every possible skill to the maximum and completed almost every quest it has to offer. The reason why I didn't finish all of the quests is simply because the game is far from finished. It is extremely buggy. Yet again, I am compelled to think of my comparison with DayZ. It's so broken, in fact, that with one of the updates, an early campaign quest was impossible to complete. The game was effectively impossible to play through. Thankfully, someone published a fix for this, not a developer but an actual fan. And since I've reached the part where I'm talking about how broken this game is, allow me to just play some clips in the background. By far not all the bugs that I have encountered, but they will show you some of them. Some are hilarious, but some are really annoying. There are so many quests which are bugged that my time playing this game was surely doubled over what it would have been if everything had worked properly. I'm not exaggerating this multiplier whatsoever. There were several times when I would get stuck in a conversation loop and would not be able to stop talking to an NPC. This would force me to shut down the game by killing its process and starting over. The main problem here is that I had not saved for a very long time, and now I would have to replay up to 2 hours of gameplay just to reach the point where I had crashed. The reason for this being that the game has a special saving mechanic. The game will only autosave if you sleep for a very long time, if you pass an important step of a quest, or if you drink a beverage known as Savior Schnapps. The drink can be purchased or even crafted, but for the biggest part of the game you will probably be neither too wealthy nor skilled at alchemy, meaning that you will have limited amounts of potions, and you will have to save accordingly since you don't want to be without potions in a place that might require you to save a few times. The thing is, you never really feel like you have to save every minute of the game when everything goes well. The world is immersive, the quests interesting, and you will usually find many ways to complete them, meaning that dangerous conflicts can be avoided for the most part. What will usually get you are the bugs. Those same bugs were the reason why I couldn't either start or finish many of the quests. Strangely enough, as you progress through the game, new bugs will begin to appear where there were none as well. Later on, my character would get stuck in various doorways, something which had never happened for the first 30 hours or so. Some bugs are interesting and confusing too. A great example is a chest in a blacksmith's house. As a thief, I would sneak in the middle of the night and rob everyone blind. One night I entered the house of the blacksmith in Ratai and found a locked chest. I picked the lock and opened it, and to my surprise, everything in there was nice and worth taking. It almost looked like it was designed according to my tastes. Naturally, I looted it and was overburdened, so I transferred the stuff over to my horse's bags, only to find that all of those were suddenly empty. I had a hunch, so I went back to the chest to check, and naturally, somehow that chest was linked to my horse's bags. I was essentially robbing myself. It was ironic, and if Henry's world was one where magic was possible, I would have thought that this is some kind of elaborate protection spell, but sadly, it was simply a very funny bug. And while bugs are very annoying, the game has its share of intended annoyances. My top most hated thing in this game are the bushes. Any bushes you can find are impenetrable obstacles. Do you want to ride your horse? Well, get used to having to stop constantly. Bushes are indestructible obstacles and they are everywhere. Even the tiniest ones will prove more effective than the walls of a fortress. Should you somehow manage to jump on top of one, for example by jumping from a higher place, expect all kinds of crazy bugs involving you flying high into the sky. A more minor gripe is the clock that represents the time passing by when you're resting or simply waiting. Obviously, it represents a hidden loading screen, but it is designed in such a way that time seems to pass very fast at first, and as soon as the last 2 hours come up, the clock will suddenly start moving super slowly. I was first assuming that this is due to the fact that the loading needs more time, but if you have to wait a longer time, for example if you are in jail and have to spend 10 days in there, your clock will still move at normal speed until it reaches the last 2 hours, and just imagine that these 10 days pass in a time that takes about 2 to 3 minutes, so you're waiting and looking at the clock for 2 to 3 minutes. It's impossible for that time not to be enough when other times my clock loads within 15 to 30 seconds. I suspect that the game actually starts loading only within these last 2 hours of the clock and the rest is just an empty animation, but I cannot be sure. What I know is that it's way too annoying. Should you decide to cancel the waiting time, for example 2 hours early, in hopes that you will skip the slow turning of the clock, you will still be forced into waiting the same time, only this time it's a black screen. No matter what you do, waiting is a hassle and you cannot avoid it. The next negative aspect is that there is no way to cancel fast traveling. You have to select special hubs on the map and you can fast travel to them. Oftentimes your target is outside these towns, so you will have to ride for a while to reach it. There is no way to simply cancel the fast travel midway and move from that location where you've cancelled it so as to save some time. This would be very convenient. As it stands currently, there is only one way of achieving this, and this way involves luck. Sometimes someone will stop you along your travels, at times you will be attacked or you will find something or someone interesting, then you can stop your travel there and have a look. And in some cases this will still be closer to your target so you can move on manually from there. Other times you will just travel until the city you're looking for and that's it, you cannot stop. Another strange thing is that Henry cannot swim. At the beginning of the game he cannot read, and later on you can even learn medicine and alchemy, the arts of using various weapons, skinning animals, etc. But swimming remains as elusive as ever. I find that to be sad because there is so much potential in this. The game takes so many things into account, such as what you're wearing and how much noise you would make based on that. This could have been expanded with the swimming where Henry would sink to the bottom if wearing heavy armor, etc. The game also presents you with a love interest, Teresa. She's a sweet woman and the one who saves your life at the start of the game. As several characters will mention, she's a keeper. Easy on the eyes too. Henry can court her, and as their relationship progresses, it would appear that they're in love. However, once you manage to sleep with her, it seems as though they both lose interest in each other. The quest is complete, so there are no more interactions between them. Nothing. This seems abrupt and kills the immersion completely. As the campaign missions advance, Henry is tasked with some very dangerous missions. I went to Teresa several times hoping to be able to spend the night with her before the big mission. It's what a man would do when it's possible for him to die the next day and never see his love anymore. Well, neither Henry nor Teresa were playing along. There were no options to interact. For a game so immersive, this feels like a huge oversight. Another very annoying thing is that almost all quest items remain in your bag. This makes it super hard to find something, since by the end of the game you will literally have over 20 such quest items. This is made worse by the fact that you cannot even move them to your chest. They have to stay on you. No idea if this was intended or if it's another bug. The many non-working quests make this issue that much more evident, since a huge number of quest items accumulate from them. Get ready for something like 20 to 30% of all quests not working. Something else that I found myself wondering about was the reputation system. You see, each town has an opinion of Henry. Depending on what he does, people can hate, love him, or be indifferent towards him. All of these can have advantages and disadvantages depending on some of your perks, for example. Some perks make people in towns fear you, which gives you a stat bonus if you are disliked in that town. These perks exist for every reputation version and are mutually exclusive. Therefore, once you commit to being bad, you can never have the perk that grants you bonuses when you are good again. At first glance, this system seems like a good idea, but the execution is strange to say the least. First of all, it seems to not work well at all. As a thieving assassin, it's natural that people will not like me. The thing is that my reputation would change even if nobody ever saw me commit any crimes. One time I was walking through town and one guard commented on how I'm stinky and I should get lost. So he had to die. I snuck up behind him and stealth killed him without being seen. Once my character felt the blood rush, it was clear that my next objective would be to clear all guards in this castle without being seen. So I spent the following hour sneaking about and killing people quietly. At some point, only the guards who were sleeping together were left. There's no way of killing multiple guards who sleep next to each other because they hear the grunt of their comrade once you stab him, so I just ignored them and let them live. Then I realized that my neutral rating had become the worst possible one with the guards. I was never seen, yet now the guards hated me and would attack me for no reason on the street. So the reputation does not work properly at all. As you have heard, I have been complaining about the game for the longest time now, yet somehow I ended up loving it. There's a lot of attention to detail. A great example is how you use the bow. At first you will not be able to hit anything with it and will even hurt yourself with the string when shooting the bow if you don't wear special guards on your arms. Later you will be much more precise with bows and will even be able to use them without any guards on your forearms. The game has a day and night cycle and even different weather, which all affects the gameplay, but I suppose that you will be impressed by how gorgeous it is before you even realize that it does affect your gameplay. The world is crafted with love and filled with interesting things. I was once hunting in the forest and stumbled upon a shallow grave. Since I had a shovel on my Henry and was not ashamed to rob the dead just as he does with the living, I had to take a look and was generously rewarded for it. Later on I realized that this was one of the buried treasures for which you can acquire maps all over the game world. The game characters are likable and complex enough, although I was a bit annoyed by the political correctness I encountered in the game. These are the Middle Ages, and while some very harsh things were said about a few supposed heretics, when a person is discovered to be homosexual, you hear nothing negative about it. This was also very immersion breaking for me. If you are building a believable medieval world, then stick to it and don't insert issues which you don't have the balls to portray properly. It may sound minor, but immersion is one of the strongest arguments for this game. At least keep that intact for as long as possible. Henry's story is not very epic, but it is worth witnessing. The game has many flaws, but what it does well, it does really well. It's probably the only non-fantasy medieval RPG I can think of that is so believable and interesting to play. The quests, when they work, almost always offer multiple solutions. You can level your character as you like, and that gives the game a lot of replayability. The combat, while flawed, can still be fun and very tactical. While I decided to be a knight in shining plate armor at the very last third of my playtime, that was still about 25 hours, and I must say that I have enjoyed that as well. You get used to it, but while it never feels right, it becomes familiar and you can still get good at it. As Henry's skills improve, so will yours. The game is trying to be as realistic as possible and almost achieves it. In many ways, Kingdom Come Deliverance is like real life, full of good and bad things, and sometimes it feels like the bad is a lot more than the good, yet we still find ways to enjoy our lives, don't we? Update 1.3 has just been released, but since I am done with the game already, I probably won't have a chance to try it out anytime soon. It's too early for me to replay it again, but they promise that they have fixed a lot of things, including over 300 quest bugs. So that's promising, at the same time shows you how many quests were really bugged in this game. So here I am recommending this broken game to you, my viewers. Honestly, it will be a bumpy ride, but it's still worth taking. The game's ending clearly indicates that Henry's adventures are not over, so let's hope the developer will fix this game and learn from their mistakes for the next one. Thanks for watching my review and have a great day.